Welcome to Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Kairoki Kilu here in Lagos, sitting in for Sheung Okinbaloi. It will seem some of the presidential candidates are focusing on the northern states today, with campaigns across the northwest and the north central. We'll take the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, for example, who stopped over in Plateau State, north central Nigeria, after yesterday's campaign in Nasarawa State. And he specifically personalized his message to the crowd present at the Rangpam Township Stadium in the capital, Jos, promising the restoration of peace and that attention will be given to the road network in the state, considering its location as it connects other parts of the country. He again promised to revamp the economy if voted into power as a president in the 2023 election. The PDP presidential rally had in attendance his running mate, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, of Delta State, the national chairman of the party, Senator Yocha Ayu, amongst other party leaders and officials, including National Assembly members.
It is homecoming for me today. Homecoming because I have been a resident in this state for the past 28 years. We have promised that we will restore peace in this state. We will also revamp the economy of this state. We will also make sure this state is connected to the neighboring states as far as the road infrastructures are concerned. APC has neglected all the roads connecting Plateau with other states in the country. We promise, because you are a PDP state, we promise we will make sure these roads are rehabilitated. We will revamp the economy. We will bring about peace and prosperity, particularly to our young men and women.
Well, another party in the running, that's the Labour Party, was just about 2 states away in Kogi, still in the north central, with its presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, promising to ensure that steel industry is revived to give strong backing to the economy. And this is a reference to the Ajaokuta steel plant, which still remains largely moribund 4 decades after its founding. At the Confluence Stadium in the capital, Lokoja, Mr. Obi again reiterated his mantra, which is to move Nigeria from a consuming nation to a producing nation. He then urged the people to reject other parties at the polls, even if they bring money to buy their votes. Well, the presidential candidate of the APC was also busy, but we'll bring you that subsequently. It's just over 2 months to go to the election, and the candidates have a number of ground to cover across the country. We'll be there to bring you all of the action. Tonight on the program, let's focus on that one. We'll speak to the very heart of the electioneering process, which is security, plus the northern region factor. It's definitely a package for you tonight. But first, let's bring you some other trending political stories. Here's your political roundup.
The governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has signed the 2023 appropriation bill into law. According to the governor, the budget of 260 billion naira will touch on 5 key priority areas of security, law and order, economic transformation, social agenda, human capital development, and the environment. He knows that the objective of his administration is to build a prosperous and livable homeland, and the 2023 budget is a veritable vehicle towards the actualization of this goal.
Our overall agenda is to make Anambra livable and prosperous. Livable and prosperous smart mega city.
The presidential candidate of the Accord Party, Professor Christopher Imumolen, is urging Nigerians to support his ambition to become Nigeria's next president in 2023. Speaking in a press conference in Lagos, Professor Imumolen says he is prepared to take charge and change the present narrative of the country by providing jobs and infrastructure development across the country.
It was leaders we knew when we were growing up that are still struggling to remain relevant today, even when it is so clear that they have passed their prime and have nothing to offer.
The governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Abia State, Mr. Alex Oti, has promised regular payments of workers' salaries, pensions, and the settlement of gratuities within a few months of his government if elected in 2023. The Labour Party candidate made this promise while addressing the leadership of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners in Isialangwa local government area of Abia State.
All the salary arrears will also clear, and we will begin to pay pensions and salaries as and when due.
The People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council in Rivers State is urging the police and other security agencies to step up security surveillance in the state ahead of next year's elections. The call is coming in the wake of a recent attack on the home of its chairman, Senator Lee Meba. Addressing journalists in Port Harcourt, the chairman of the Campaign Council, Senator Lee Meba, calls political parties to conduct themselves in a peaceful manner ahead of the 2023 general elections.
The National Security Advisor, the IG, the Director of SSS to step up surveillance on this state.
The River State Commissioner of Police, Okon Effiong, is warning politicians in the state against involving the police in its politics. Mr. Effiong gave this warning during a courtesy call by members of the River State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists at the command headquarters in Port Harcourt. He assures the citizens of the state that the police will not be political during the elections.
We must remain apolitical. In other words, we must remain non-partisan.
Well, now that you're well acquainted with other trending stories, let's begin tonight with the all-important conversation on security, particularly election security. Just yesterday, Nigerians woke up to the news that INEC's office in Imo State was attacked, the local government HQ, by the way. And that's the third time in less than 2 weeks. And this came on a day that collection of permanent voter cards commenced across the nation. And it's coming also exactly 74 days to elections. Now, concerns have heightened yet again about securing Nigeria's elections, with INEC actually calling these attacks systematic in targeting its assets across the country. I mean, the one we saw yesterday, we saw a building torched, we saw an operational vehicle torched as well. In fact, a policeman lost his life in the process. And we know that the success of any election rises and falls on security. So let's see how we can better secure our elections. And that's the focus tonight. Well, our guests tonight have vast experience in the area of security, both locally and internationally, and they'll be providing the much-needed insights into this very important issue. I'll begin by introducing our guest who joins us live from our Abuja studio, Major General, in fact, Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. I'll introduce Major General in a moment, but let's begin with Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. He's a security expert, he's an adjunct faculty member, George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, and a special assistant to the President on disaster management. Group Captain, thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, INEC's offices, they're coming under severe attack. In fact, INEC has called them systematic. And this latest one is one too many for a lot of Nigerians. And, I mean, this is coming after 6 successive general elections, coming, 23 years into our 4th republic. You'll expect that all of this will have left it behind. So I wonder for you, seeing the recent spate of attacks we've seen in Osun State, we've seen in Ogun State, now 3 in Imo State in just less than 2 weeks. What do you make of these recent attacks? Really, how do you see them, especially the ones playing out of recent?
Thank you very much. Now, attack on security, on electoral facilities or INEC facilities or even officials should be something that with a proper risk analysis or security risk assessment is something that should have been foreseen. When you talk of, electoral security, which clearly can just be defined as the process of protecting electoral stakeholders, information, facilities, and events. When you look at that, there are different kinds of electoral security that you require. But what I see us doing is that we laid some emphasis on some of types of security, but we did not lay emphasis on others. For example, in the types of security you need for your election to be successful, you need physical security. Now, when you talk of physical security, this is where we are. This is security of offices, INEC offices, residences of electoral officials, even candidates have been attacked, and party offices. This is one aspect of security which we didn't look at. If you look at what INEC has provided, mostly we are concentrating on security when election turns violent. We did not look at this pre-election processes of protecting our physical security assets. The picture you just show of some of the facilities at the local governments that were attacked. Right from the beginning, when we are talking of security, the problem in Nigeria, most of the times, we react rather than plan for security. Physical security is about planning. Right from where INEC is going to open an office in Kaduna. Let me use Kaduna, for example, not use the southeast. There are areas in Kaduna, if you do a proper security risk analysis, that you know they are already prone to crimes, disorderly conduct. So when INEC is thinking of an office, you do that analysis and decide in which area in Kaduna are you going to put in your office, on what kind of street, what kind of building. The building that you show of a local government, we can say, for example, in general, what security is there in local government area? In an average local government headquarters in Nigeria, almost nil. So talking about physical security with proper security risk assessment, even right from whether they are going to hire the office, whether they are going to buy it, a security expert should be able to advise, this is the place. That is the beginning of your security. That is the beginning of your security. Then you come to personal security. Now personal security, you're talking of security of your election officials, of your observers, of party agents, of candidates, of observers. Anybody, including even security personnel themselves, because they have been killed. That is where your personal security comes in. The next aspect of security you need is information security. We are talking about our election going into IT. You know?
Right.
So all IT things, computers, records, that is another form of security. Then electoral events, the day of the election themselves. But unfortunately, this is the only area. If you look at what INEC provided for security, which I checked before I kept this thing, you will see all the arrangements were for electoral events. That is when the election happens. We didn't think how we would protect our, our offices, how, even the residents of electoral commissioners and electoral officials should be given priority. So I think this is what we are doing now. We are reacting. We are reacting. If you look at, you could take basically any office that has been attacked by INEC, look at it, even after the attack. Where is it situated? What is even the perimeter fencing, if there is? What is the CCTV? What is the the lighting system? Where is the location? We just pick any building and put INEC materials in there and make it. So this is what I am saying right from the beginning, is what is called this concept of crime prevention through environmental design. Right from where you decide to buy your plot of house, you start thinking of security.
Well, Group Captain, I see that you have even gone ahead to talk about, the responsibility, the role of the security agencies, which is a point that we'll explore even further. But I'd like to also put this in context, because yesterday's attack saw response from the security and emergency officials. In fact, 3 of the attackers are said to have been killed. And I just wanted to put that context. But let me introduce our other guests so we can expand this conversation and even put more light on this. We've since been joined by Major General Anthony Atolagbe, who is former theater commander, Operation Safe Haven, is also former commander of the United Nations African Union Hybrid Operations in Darfur. Joins us virtually on the program. Thank you very much, Major General. Just before you joined, we were talking about perhaps things that may be at play here, seeing the spate of attacks we have seen, particularly on INEC's offices. Now, these offices have been there for years, but on the verge of elections, it looks like the attacks have heightened. The recent in Imo State, 3 of them in less than 2 weeks. And I wonder for you, what do you think is at play here? Perhaps the motive. The Group Captain has talked about the responsibility of security, but then about the motive, what do you think is at play?
I say good evening to everyone, and I'm happy to be here. My colleague has spoken extensively. What I will say here is about information gathering. Okay, so if we are able to send our intelligence, gather what we call human intelligence and other various forms of gathering information, when we send them to the ground, especially conflict environments like the Southeast, you will find out that we have some areas of concentration that we provide a kind of guide to what we call threat assessment, which my colleague has spoken about. And when you do this threat assessment, now what we don't do in this country And I'm talking about security agencies, and I'll make it clear here. There's what we call future plans in any kind of arrangement that you are doing. Future plans look at future challenges. You don't look at just the contemporary, that it has not happened before, or the idea that we are just being confronted with what is going on now does not mean that it cannot happen when the time really comes. So you see that this actually further expatiates on what Group Captain Sheo has said, that we need to do a kind of threat assessment. And this threat assessment goes further to look at what is called future plans. So in future plans, you look at future threats. And then you start looking at things that you do. So now, in this particular case, we know the theater that is concerned with some of these threats. What have we done? Are we just relying on foot soldiers who will be walking around, or just providing vehicles for people to get into vehicles? And then have we deployed drones? How many of them are there? Okay, what level of technology have we applied? And these are some of the questions the security heads needs to answer, because we cannot sit down and allow these things to continue to go on. Yes, there will be threats, but we can limit these threats. We've been in theaters in Liberia, in Sudan, and we conducted elections in those countries despite the threats. But we need to bring down the level of threat to some of these facilities so that we don't have a situation where the people are unable to do their jobs. And that is just what I'll say.
On the back of that, I'm still quite particular about what is at play here, because I know that there's the war that is fought on the theater, in the theater, on the field, and there's also the narrative war, the effect of this attack, for example. INEC was particular about the positioning of the office that was just attacked. He says that, you know what, this particular office is in the state capital between a court and the state secretariat. So it's prominent, it's in a major place. And it looks like this attack was maybe daredevil, maybe to send a message, which is why I ask, what do you think is at play here, especially on the side of the attackers? Do you think that we have a grasp of the game plan, the end game that is being, you know, worked towards, such that maybe we can stay ahead of that as well?
Okay, there are a few areas that can play out. First, I saw a video this afternoon where some guys went to some places and they were bringing down billboards and the rest of it. Well, we know that this kind of problem is not easily resolved. So what do we need to do? Is it impossible to place some men around these facilities from either the police or the military or NSCDC? I don't think that is impossible. So what are we doing? Today we've just heard how the IGP has invited other members of the security agencies for meetings. What has happened at the state level? Okay, what has happened at the local government level? And are we waiting until February before we start putting things in place? All these things are part of the things I said they are concerned with future plans. You don't sit down. Some of these plans needed to have been put in place like maybe from June this year or from August this year, so that people know that, look, when people come around so facility, this is the level of response that you have. There should be a standby team either sitting somewhere close to that area if you cannot deploy physically on the place. Not this kind of reactionary kind of something. It shows incompetence. Okay, so it is something that needs to be planned well ahead, because when you have a future, an assessment of the future, and you say, okay, this thing is likely to happen. Don't say because it's happening only in one part of the country that it cannot happen in another country, in other states. No, that is not the way. You need to work things out and make sure that there's just a seamless way of responding to some of these threats without people just going there. Then people are walking around and stretching their necks through the windows to go and check, okay, what is the level of damage? You are not there to go and carry out assessment of damages.
Right. You
are supposed to be there to be able to ward off these guys or get control of the area so that it doesn't fall into the hands of these daredevils.
All right, let's bring in Group Captain Sadiq Shehu into this conversation yet again. And I know that you have detailed the types of security, talk about physical security, personal security, even security for the materials, before we talk about election day security. And you've identified some of these issues. But with the current security architecture we have in Nigeria today, maybe we'll begin to look at that to see where the solution will come from. Are we able to adequately, clinically, effectively provide all of that with the setup as it is today, or you think that some things need to be tweaked so we can better handle that?
Well, in that your question, you are talking about the sufficiency of security as we have in Nigeria. And this even goes beyond even without the election. Even without the election, we know there's nothing hidden, that we are low on numbers of security personnel. Whether you talk about the military, who are not even the most important players in security election, if we are serious, police are low in numbers. So that is not a news item. We know we're already low on security. You can see the low level of security we have when we have off-season elections. When I mean not the regular elections. You will see sometimes almost 3 neighboring states have to be emptied of all their security officers to go and provide security in one state. So definitely that tells you when there is a national election that covers most of the states, you are going to have problem of numbers. Now, having said that, permit me please to just go back to the issue that my boss here, Oga Atolagbe, raised on the issue of collecting information. We've been doing rounds and rounds of, of elections since democracy returned. It should be a lesson gathering process. One area is more dangerous than another. INEC should be keeping such records so that when 2023 passes, we know the areas that poses a challenge. When 2027 God spares our life, it is going to happen again. You know areas where we are going to lay your, more emphasis than others. Certainly some areas will be more volatile, either because of the kind of politics there. So many factors can make one area more volatile than another. So these are lessons that you should carry forward when next you are doing. And again, the issue of when you look at the Southeast, even without the election, we have issue of IPOP, we have issue of separatists. Now, something with election is that apart from the election violence itself, election period attracts other threats that have nothing to do with election. Because when we're talking of election now, whether it is in Nigeria or anywhere, you will hear international community saying, we hope this election will be free. Even some people are saying 2023 may be the end of Nigeria. All those kinds of doomsday predictions. What does that do? It attracts a lawbreaker. That is an opportunity because the whole world, the whole media is concentrated on that security. So carry on an attack in a period during or preceding an election is a golden opportunity for either a terrorist or organized criminal group to strike because already there is tension, there is media. So that is the nature of election. Apart from the election related to the violence related to the election itself, other malfeasors will like to use that period to perpetrate spectacular acts because that will bring attention to them and it will, fulfill other motives they have apart from actually even disrupting the election. So that's what it is not surprising that whether it is IPOB, whether it is unknown gunmen, they are hyping their actions as the election is coming. Because it is everybody wants publicity, especially a lawbreaker. So the election period, with all the media saying, will Nigeria survive 2023? Will the election even hold? It's an attractive, it's something very attractive for organizations like that to strike.
So you talked about the numbers that were deficient in that one. You've also talked about intelligence gathering, in fact, both of you. And the police might say maybe they had some sort of intelligence, which is why they were able to respond to yesterday's attack. 3 of the attackers were killed. Sadly, 1 policeman died and a building was torched and a vehicle was torched. You've talked about other issues which might not be related to elections, but still they affect elections, as we have seen this latest attack. Perhaps it's one of that you mentioned. So if the numbers are low in terms of kinetic, what other means, perhaps non-kinetic measures, as security officials and experts call it, what other maybe non-kinetic can be deployed? Since we have just about 73 days to the election, clearly we cannot recruit as much as we need, as much as we ought to have. So do you see maybe another alternative in non-kinetic to quell this?
You go back to the first question when you asked me about types of security. When you talk of physical security, it's non-kinetic. For example, even a common burglar, you know, he likes to see a house that is not well protected. He likes to see a house with low walls. He likes to see a house with no barbed wire. He likes to see a house where there is no sign of CCTV. So what these physical security measures do is to discourage. And even if they don't discourage, they will delay the attacker. So you see, in this one, you are not even talking of a policeman on guard, or a military man, or a civil defense man on guard. The actual physical security, in fact, even the appearance where the building is, can deter an attacker. You know, a criminal, whether he's a terrorist or just a common criminal, he wants to get reward for minimum of effort. No criminal picks a target that will give him maximum of effort. So sometimes just looking, it's normal. If there's a house with high wall and a house with low wall, the likelihood is that a burglar will go for the house with low walls. So when you are talking of non-kinetics, which should be what should have been done long ago, unfortunately, you cannot be talking of non-kinetics now. Like I said, the non-kinetics start right from identification. Where is the INEC office is going to be? What is the length, what is the height of the wall that we need for a typical? By now, what I should see INEC doing, since now we are taking into account that INEC facilities are going to be attacked, going forward, they should have a standard minimum security requirement for an INEC office in terms of height of perimeter wall, in terms of putting concertina wire, in terms of putting lighting 24/7, in terms of putting alarm system. All these things should be something that, you know, is not just to find any building. Well, you said this one is near local government headquarters, but I want to say, I am a Nigerian, I move around. Not all INEC offices are properly sited. The place where you site a building can either encourage or discourage a lawmaker. If he looks at the effort that he will do before he can break into it, that can discourage him. So these are the non-kinetics you are talking about. Personal security, okay, that one is kinetics. Information security is non-kinetic. You need to have, you know, IT specialists. That's why election security, in fact, it needs not only military, police, it needs many other experts that will contribute. When you're talking about information security, probably it's not a soldier you're looking for. It's not a policeman. You want an IT specialist that can put, you know, barriers and barriers and barriers so that somebody cannot attack your system. The only places where you need kinetics probably is personal security of voters, other stakeholders, even the election officials, and then on the election day. This is probably why you need kinetics. But when you talk of physical security, when you talk of information security, when you talk of citing the offices, these are non-kinetics. And unfortunately, you need to do this long ago. What INEC is doing, with due respect and with benefit of hindsight, is to bring, you know, security measures as things are happening, not pre-planning like General Atulagbe said. We are not pre-planning.
Right, just to be clear, INEC is not responsible for security, right? It's the security agencies. And a lot of times when people hear non-kinetic, things that come to mind is usually maybe dialogue, you know, not just the stick, but the carrot, have some sort of soft approach to security. But it's interesting you bring some other dimensions to non-kinetic just to widen this. But let me take this to Major General Atolagbe. I will go to an area which maybe is not usually talked about, because when we talk security, we think about the security agencies, I mean, in collaboration with INEC. But then the role of political parties and political actors. And I'd like to know for you, Major General, what do you make of the political atmosphere in the build-up to the elections, particularly the conduct and utterances of politicians, their supporters and all? How well would you say it is in accordance with the Electoral Act, the guidelines and the peace accord?
Thank you very much. I think most of these are political leaders. They know what they are doing, and they seem to know how to go about it. But if you look at what is obtainable along global standard, we have a lot of things to correct in the way and manner the campaign is going. People misinform us. There are disinformation. There are lies. Open one that everybody can see. And at the end of the day, after feeding the entire country with such information, we see some of them having to clink glasses together at the same time. And I think this is just like making a joke of the whole situation. So what are we saying? 2023 election, I think, is supposed to be a defining moment in the history of this country. And I think that is the more reason why we should talk more seriously on facts, on figures, on at least providing the truth to the story so that people will listen and be able to take the right decision. But if we keep accusing ourselves and keep using some words that are not good within the national polity, but perhaps it's not going to be it's not everybody that wants to hear those kind of things. We want to hear real, realizable, and things that perhaps we see happening within other climes. We see people go to tell us things that they will do. I'm going to do road. I'm going to provide security. We can't even pick anything solid that we can say, okay, this is what this person is actually driving at. And the other party is going to say the same thing. Some are quoting figures. We cannot even confirm the figures. So these are some of the areas. And when you continue some of these things are more or less even inciting people, or not even making people to have the belief that perhaps something very serious is coming up. Because I can't imagine how people will just take guns and go and start destroying houses, government facilities, INEC facilities, and saying that perhaps they don't want election to hold in their own. If there are some seriousness attached to this thing, I think even people will be telling those guys who are going about to tell them that, look, something serious is about happening. And this also goes to the aspect of providing security, because the security aspect also has to do with whatever we are being fed on by these politicians who go in on the air to speak. So I think there's more to be done by the politicians to make sure that they don't misinform people, and they tell us, give us facts, give us realizable information so that people will take this election more seriously than they've ever done before, and then we'll be able to do things better.
Well, let's wind down on this. We have just about a minute to go, and I'll go to Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. Now, people are in the process of deciding on who to vote for, and competency to handle security challenges effectively will be top on the list of a lot of people. So how can Nigerians tell who really will be fit for the role of the Commander-in-Chief, or call it the Chief Security Officer of the nation?
Thank you very much. I will call on Nigerian voters, beyond giving wide, broad brushes or pen strokes, I will do this, they should demand for concrete, measurable aspects. What are you going to do as Commander-in-Chief? You are raising a very valuable question. If you do not have a proactive, knowledgeable Commander-in-Chief, our security issues are not going to go away. So I would like to call on Nigerians for each candidate. Don't just accept. I mean, you have to question the candidates on what are they going on security. Definitely security, unfortunately, this regime will not end security issues. Even if they end, security issues can evolve. So security should be in the front burner. And the voters should not accept just, semantics or theatrics or theories. They need to ask concretely, I'm going to improve security by what way? But unfortunately, even the media, with due respect, I do not see you asking very hard questions of the candidates about security. You hear about, there is no substance, there is no details of what candidates are going to do about security. That's the kind of thing. For me, as a security consultant, as somebody who is interested in security, not only for me and my children, I have not had those very difficult questions to know, apart from, basic things, flowery speeches. I want to know what the candidate as Commander-in-Chief is going to do about security in Nigeria. And the press, you have a lot of role you have to play in bringing these questions to the foremost, not just, mere just paintings. I have not heard, with due respect, I have not heard one candidate that has convinced me with concrete numbers and indicators what is going to do about security. I have not heard.
Well, we at Channels Television will always ask the tough questions without fear or favor. And I'd like for you to watch our town hall. We've had a series of them And I'm sure that you'll find all of those tough questions right there. But I'd like to thank you so much. Quite important points raised here for the various stakeholders. We've been speaking with Major General Anthony Tolagbe, who is a former theater commander, Operation Safe Haven, joins us virtually, as well as Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, a security expert, a special assistant to the President on disaster management, and adjunct faculty member at George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
And good night.
Well, we'll take a moment on the show, and when we return, the APC begins its Northwest campaigns. The question is, what's in it for a region that has suffered its fair share of multifaceted challenges? Well, a key member of the party and majority leader of the House of Representatives, Honorable Alhassan Adodogua, is our next guest. Please stay with us. The presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Senator Bola Tinubu, also continued on his campaign trail today in Kaduna State, in essence, kicking off his campaign in the Northwest region. At the Ahmadu Bello Stadium venue in the state capital, he promised to eliminate bandits and kidnappers if elected into office as president. Now, before the rally today, Senator Tinubu had visited one of the epicenters of banditry in the state, Beningwari local government area, where he sympathized with the emir and the people of the emirate over the attacks.
The greatest God Almighty that brought you here to acknowledge our party, to remain loyal to our party, you will never regret it. Inshallah, all those troublemakers, violent kidnappers, killers, all troublemakers who are cross the security of Kaduna, I assure you, we will eliminate them.
So let's take a look at the APC's we'll call it Northwest campaign strategy, and what's in it for the people. After all, that's what matters at the end of the day. We have joining us on the program tonight, Honorable Alhassan Adodogua, who's a majority leader, House of Representatives, who's a member of the All Progressives Congress, incidentally, from that region, the Northwest. Good evening, Honorable. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good evening, my brother, and good evening, Nigerians. Thank you for having me.
Right. Let's start off with, the most important for the people. I'd like to know, really, what would you say is the selling point of your party, by extension, your candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu? And this is amidst all of the challenges that the people of that region has faced. So, as the party that has been in power for upwards 7 years, both at the national and the state level for Kaduna, what is your selling point? What are you selling to the people?
I think this is a straightforward question, my brother. When you ask me what do we have to offer Nigerians, especially in the area of security, which our candidate has just mentioned when he was in Kaduna this afternoon, you just have nothing to contemplate that we have a lot to tell Nigerians, especially our zone. In the first place, when you talk about Northwest as a zone, it is one zone that you can call a politically responsible zone. This is a zone where you have the most populous state in the federation. This is a zone where we have all along been called as people of ideology, people that do politics based on principles and commitment to the fact that we do what we think is right. And if we must sell any point to our people, especially in the Northwest, is the very fact that, oh yes, Nigeria as a federal system of government, over the 7 years, Nigerians have conceded the presidency to the Northwest through our own father, the father of the nation, who is a member of the Northwestern political space, Muhammadu Buhari, who is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today. For me, in politics, it's all about give and take. Give and take in the sense that the northwestern part of the country, right from Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, and Sokoto State, have taken our shot in the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So as a zone of responsibility, as a zone where you have unprecedented politicians who matter, then we are indebted to the nation to pay back. This is one major important point that we have to sell to our people, that yes, the northwestern part of this country has taken its shot through our good president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and it's time for us to pay back. And when Muhammadu Buhari came in for the presidency of this country, we can always remember clearly the kind of contribution, the support, the kind of interventions we have received from other zones of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, most especially the southwestern part of the country, where the Yorubas come from, where Bola Ahmed Tinubu came from. So as a matter of morality, political morality, as a matter of political responsibility, and as people who believe in ideology and the principles of give and take, we want to tell our people in the first place that we must have to pay back in the same coin. This is one good point. Then secondly, when you are talking of deliverables, you can remember clearly when the state of Nigeria was almost ungovernable in terms of insecurity, left, right, and center, especially in the northeastern part of this country. The northwestern part of the country was also not spared. I can still remember clearly when you cannot get out of your own house, you could not come out of your own house to the marketplaces, to the farmlands, to the schools, to the churches, or to the mosque where you observe your prayers because of serious threat of insecurity. In Kano, for instance, the central mosque in Kano was almost condemned and attacked by people. People were massacred because of insecurity. At least one can get up to say with his head above the shoulder that yes, President Muhammadu Buhari, through the APC policies of security and programs of government, we have been able to minimize the extent of threat in terms of insecurity. Of course, you still have some pockets of problems around, but the fact remains is that Nigeria is now better in terms of security. If you look at the northeast, where things were quite
yeah, you can land on that point. You were talking about the Northeast, quickly.
Yes, if you look at the Northeast, for example, when it was almost ungovernable, some number of local governments, about 12 of them, were out of the control of the Nigerian armed forces. They were taken over by the Boko Haram people in those days. That was when the PDP was in power then. Muhammadu Buhari took over the security of this country almost on its knees. But I want to assure you without any fear of contradiction that with the dexterity and the kind of experience of President Muhammadu Buhari and with the good policies of the APC government, that has become history in the northeastern part of the country. You can believe with me that you don't have an inch now, an inch or a step that is no longer in the hands or under the control of the Nigerian armed forces. That has become history.
Well, Honorable, for instance, that's just on that point you made, if I can comment now, Honorable.
And Kano.
On that point you made that no inch of the nation's territory is under the control of terrorists. Just a few days ago, the Speaker of Borno State, Abdul Karim Lawan, said that 2 local government areas still need liberation. He mentioned them, Guzamala and Kukawa, saying that there is no security presence and it's under the control of Boko Haram. Those are the words of the Speaker of the Borno State House of Assembly. So that contradicts clearly what you're saying, being a man who is on the ground, and he's on record to have said that. But when you talk about the Northwest, now this is a region that has faced its fair share of security challenges. I think what will be fresh in the minds of many is a recent attack, on the train attack. People were killed. Lots of people were abducted. I mean, the train service is just trying to pick up yet again. And that's a major one for a lot of people. So when you say that it's a give and take situation, some would ask, I mean, what more can the people really give after the support they have given to your party, seeing their indices right now? And I'll just add to that, the challenge of out-of-school children because of time. Let me just pack it together. UNESCO, UNICEF has said that Nigeria has between 18.5 million to 20 million children and youth out of school, and 70% of them are in the north. And this is another recipe for insecurity, poverty, and all of that. So quickly, before we move on to the next point, what's the plan to tackle that based on your party's manifesto?
All I'm trying to say, no matter what the Speaker of the Borno State Assembly said, that could have been maybe a recent development. But you can agree with me on a sustained basis that the security of that region has improved to a significant extent. There could be maybe a recent development, which of course that will be tackled as well. But the fact still remains that our security situation in the country has been improved significantly under the control of the APC government under President Muhammadu Buhari. And when you are talking of the Northwest, for instance, of course our population matters. Of course, our complexity matters. The level of illiteracy, of course, is there. But I want to assure you that we have raised that to a very impressive level, to the extent that through universal basic education of places like my state, Kano State, where you have a governor who has declared primary and secondary school education compulsory and free, then we have gone far in trying to really ameliorate the problems of school dropouts or non-school children. And I believe some other states like Kaduna, where you have the digital governor, El Rufai, has also picked. If you are talking about the level of our education, whether at universal basic level or at secondary school level, even at the tertiary level, we have had a very significant improvement in that area. And the fact is that Muhammadu Buhari cannot be expected to have done everything at the same time. 8 years tenure of office cannot be enough to put back the messes and the problems we have encountered during the PDP misrule. We need much more than 8 years to finish all those things. And the fact here remains that you now have another Buhari. You now have a master strategist.
Well,
you
Honorable,
now have a master planner.
It's interesting you say
that. Somebody who can think ahead of time. Somebody who is connected internationally. Somebody who has an example of a good rule and a good government when he was the governor of Lagos State.
Somebody so when you say that 8 years is not enough, pardon me,
so the belief is that APC now to be taken over by Asewaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu will definitely consolidate and build on the gains already made by President Muhammadu Buhari. It is a gradual process.
Let's move on now, Honorable, because of time.
Those opposed in the National Assembly, we have done our bid.
Honorable Adedogua, I'll need to come in now because of time. And when you said that 8 years is not enough, I wonder if your party were to win yet again, you say maybe the time is not enough, because these were terms and conditions that you did not tell Nigerians originally when you were campaigning pre-2015 that, you know what, 8 years will not be enough. But I'd like to speak to something that touches at your person and by extension your party. You recently in a video asked people to vote for APC or you deal with them. And those were your words. You spoke in Hausa language. But interpretation is that you sort of swore and said that on election day, the people must vote for APC or you will deal with them. And I'd like to know, why did you threaten violence on the electorate in such a manner?
My good brother, that is not a threat. And we never threaten our electorates. What you don't know about Kano State is one very special political space. We have our special semantics in politics. We have the shenanigans we use during campaign and electioneering campaign. Kano State is an aggressive state in terms of politics, of ideology. Kano State, we have our own way of approaches when you come to campaign. You must employ and use what you ginger your people. This is what we call political sloganeering. This is what we call political semantics and political rhetorics. And you cannot stop sloganeering in Kano politics. We have inherited this time immemorial. Asking people to vote for APC or we deal with them simply means what you can call shenanigans, political brouhaha, which we make simply to ginger our supporters, to let them feel that, oh, we are on ground and we will get it right. I never meant to intimidate. I never meant to threaten any of my voters. I'm a reasonable person. I have been in election processes for the past 32 years, and I have never used threat or intimidation to win my election.
As we wind down
but
quickly,
you cannot
Honorable,
take away political shenanigans. You cannot take away political brouhaha.
As we wind down,
take
Honorable,
away political sloganeering in Nigeria's politics. Let me give you one example.
You made the point.
Let me give you one example. Let me give you one good example.
We're just 30 seconds away.
One good example. One good example.
Honorable,
one good example.
I need to actually wind down on the program. We are actually constricted by
one
time.
Good example,
and
please.
I know that the Electoral Act 2022 does not recognize shenanigans and brouhaha. In fact, if you look at Section 93, it says that a party, candidate, aspirant, or person or group of persons shall not directly or indirectly threaten any person with the use of force or violence during any political campaign in order to compel that person or any other person to support or refrain from supporting a political party or candidate. In fact, he goes on to prescribe the punishment, says maximum fine of 1 million naira or imprisonment for a term of 12 months. I just want you to answer yes or no. Can Nigerians take this as the threat from your party at large as well?
Nigerians should not take this as a threat. It's part of our political shenanigans and brouhaha. This is what we call the highlights of political democracy in Kano politics, and you cannot rule that out.
Well, Honorable Adedogua, we have to run now, but the choice is for the electorate to make, especially when they hear things like this. But we'd like to thank you so much for your time on the program. We'll be speaking with Honorable Alassane Adedogua, who is a majority leader in the House of Representatives. Thank you again for your time. Well, we need to go right now. Quite an interesting conversation, but we'll be back tomorrow with more interesting political conversations for you. Bye.